So, hello everyone, this is Shreya from Shreya's Academy. From today onwards, we'll be starting the daily briefing of the Hindu newspaper. So, आज से जो है हम द हिंदू न्यूज़पेपर और आने वाली न्यूज़ को करंट अफेयर्स को हम रिफाइन करके फॉर द यूपीएससी प्रिपरेशन who are preparing for 2027 prelims and the mains thereafter. आई अंडरस्टैंड कि इस बार जो 2026 एग्जाम जो हुआ था वो बहुत ही डिफिकल्ट हुआ था, बट इट्स टाइम टू रिस्टार्ट. वी हैव क्लियरली 10 months इन विच वी कैन स्टार्ट अगेन, रिस्टार्ट कर सकते हैं, वापस अपने एग्जाम को ऑन ट्रैक कर सकते हैं. एंड टिल नाउ इफ यू आर नॉट येट स्टार्टेड, देन I am going to start a new video, new session in which I gonna explain that how we're gonna crack the UPSC exam in next 10 months. And in this video, we will be studying that what are the daily in the Hindu newspaper, the Aaj Ke newspaper, may what are the important current affairs we have got, and how to rate it to the exam for the GS1, GS2, GS3, and GS4. How we'll be using it for the prelims and the mains. And if you can see, let us without wasting any time, let us get into the video. So आज देख सकते हैं बिकॉज आज हमारे जो one minute, just a minute. Okay, yeah. Hmm. Yeah. So आज अगर हम देखें तो in GS1 we got a heritage topic, geography and demographics. In GS2 we have polity, welfare and geopolitics related to news. GS3 we have frontier tech, economic resilience, and GS4 we have a topic related to administrative ethics. What is this basically? That in newspaper, when we are reading newspaper, not every each and every news is not relevant for the UPSC preparation. So what we are supposed to know that when we are reading newspaper, jitna padna hai, instead means more than knowing what to study, the key is to know that what not to be studied. Then you will get into the right job. So let us get started into the video. Okay. The next slide. Yeah. So आज के न्यूज़पेपर में जो व्हाट आर द मेन इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक्स जो है वो है जीएस में ब्रह्मानंद टेम्पल डिप्लोमेसी एंड वायनाड टनल डिजास्टर. तो क्या हुआ है रिसेंटली, जो प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी और इंडोनेशियन प्राइम मिनिस्टर जो है उन दोनों का यहाँ पे मीटअप हुआ है, जहाँ पे उन्होंने प्रधानंद टेम्पल पे एक इंटरनेशनल लेवल डिप्लोमेसी दिखने को मिलती है. देन वी हैव अ वायनाड टनल डिजास्टर वेयर बिकॉज ऑफ एंथ्रोपोलॉजिकल डिजास्टर मीन्स एंथ्रोपोजेनिक एक्टिविटीज की वजह से जो वायनाड में एक बहुत एक बड़ा डिजास्टर आ चुका है, मीन्स एक लैंडस्लाइड जैसे हो चुका है. अभी इफ यू रिमेम्बर इन 2024 देयर हैज बीन heavy rains because of which the landslide has been happened, but this is not that force. ये जो वायनाड का टनल डिजास्टर है वो हुआ है man-made anthropogenic activities की वजह से, which we are going to study about in detail. Then we talk about the GS2. In GS2, we have a West Asia volatility. As you know that recently the Strait of Hormuz has blockade issues, because of which we have inflation rise. Okay, and there has been so instability, economic crisis हो गया था बहुत सारे countries all around. बहुत से countries ने economic क्या इमरजेंसी डिक्लेयर कर दिया था. सो जो उस टॉपिक को भी हम एड्रेस करेंगे. देन वी हैव राइट टू बी फॉरगॉटन फ्रेमवर्क. देन नेक्स्ट हमारे आज के द हिंदू न्यूज़पेपर में है यूनियन और स्टेट वेलफेयर बर्डन. तो आप जानते हैं कि जैसे आप जानते हैं मोस्ट ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट जो है उन्होंने एमजी नरेगा बिल को रिप्लेस कर दिया है वी राम जी बिल के साथ. तो उसके वजह से जो सेंटर और स्टेट के जो फिजिकल फेडरलिज्म, कॉर्पोरेट फेडरलिज्म में जो चेंजेस आए हैं उसको भी हम थोड़ा एड्रेस करेंगे. देन आज के न्यूज़पेपर में नेक्स्ट है द नेशनल क्वांटम मिशन टाइमलाइन, और जिसमें हम बात करेंगे कि जो हम क्वांटम मिशन, इंडिया का क्वांटम मिशन जो है उसमें किस तरह की प्रोग्रेस हो रही है, या फिर हम बोल सकते हैं उसके रिलेटेड एक आर्टिकल आ चुका है. नेक्स्ट आर्टिकल हम लोग देख सकते हैं कि अब जो है वो रशियन ऑयल डिपेंडेंसी जो है उसके ऊपर, मीन्स एज यू नो दैट बिकॉज ऑफ द ऑब्वियस वेस्ट एशिया वॉलेटिलिटी की वजह से जो स्ट्रेट ऑफ हार्मोज है वो उसमें ब्लॉकेड होने की वजह से रशिया के ऊपर, रशिया का ऑयल का जो है उसका डिमांड बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ चुका था, जिसके दौरान हमने अराउंड 40% हमारा जो लाइक द ऑयल डिपेंडेंसी ऑन द रशिया हैज बिन इंक्रीज टू 40%। बट यहाँ पे नोट करने वाली बात ये है कि बिफोर मीन्स इन मई, इनमें क्या हुआ था कि जो रशिया का जो ऑयल है वो हमको बहुत कम रेट पे मिल रहा था, बट डिस्काउंट्स बहुत सारे मिले थे, जैसे आप जानते हैं कि उसका बहुत ग्लोबल, उसकी ग्लोबल डिमांड जो है कम हो गई थी, बट बिकॉज ऑफ स्ट्रेट ऑफ हार्मुज के ब्लॉकेट्स की वजह से हुआ, क्योंकि रशियन ऑयल की डिमांड बढ़ गई। बट नाउ वी कैन से दैट अभी ऑल्दो द स्ट्रेट ऑफ हार्मुज का क्राइसिस जैसे जैसे कम हो रहा है, उससे रशियन ऑयल के ऊपर हम हमारा इम्पैक्ट बढ़ रहा है, उसके ऊपर डिपेंडेंसी जो बढ़ रही है, बट नाउ वी आर पेइंग एट प्रीमियम। ओके, सो जिससे एंड एट द सेम टाइम वी हैव स्ट्रक्चरल कोलैप्स इन पुणे एंड दिल्ली। इन दिल्ली पुणे में एक बहुत ही दर्दनाक दुर्घटना, इंसिडेंट्स ऑफ collapse of a building and construction debris which ये issues क्या है, पॉलिसीज जो है उसमें, पॉलिसीज, पब्लिक पॉलिसीज एंड उसमें इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर जो मेंटेनेंस है, उन सारे एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव जो मेंटेनेंस, उन सारी बातों को जो है पॉइंट आउट करता है। देन वी कम टू गेट एट द GS4 which is ethics, integrity and aptitude, that's the morality of digital privacy and open justice. Now you can see that because of the emerging, we have the emergence of like ethics के जो डायमेंशंस है वो बहुत ज्यादा इमर्ज हो रहे हैं। देयर इज एन एवोल्यूशन इन द डायमेंशन ऑफ एथिक्स, मींस एथिक्स जो है वो किताबों तक, फिजिकल रियल वर्ल्ड तक ही सीमित नहीं है। देयर डिजिटल एथिक्स जो है उसका भी बहुत ज्यादा डायमेंशन पे एक्सपांड हो रहा है। इफ यू कैन सी दैट लास्ट ईयर भी डिजिटल एथिक्स के ऊपर वी हैव सॉ द क्वेश्चंस ऑन GS4। सो टुडे वी हैव एन आर्टिकल ऑन द मोरालिटी ऑफ डिजिटल प्राइवेसी ओपन जस्टिस। देन बेसिकली यहाँ पे ओवरऑल देख सो दिस इज ओवरऑल पिक्चर कि हम आज क्या डिस्कस करने वाले हैं। सो लेट विदाउट वेस्टिंग टाइम लेट्स गेट इनटू द टॉपिक। सो लेट अस टॉक अबाउट दैट प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी जी जो है हमारे इंडिया के प्राइम मिनिस्टर, उन्होंने जो इनॉग्रेट किया है जॉइंट कंजर्वेशन प्रोजेक्ट, कहाँ पे, ब्रह्मानन टेम्पल के पास। जो ब्रह्मानन टेम्पल है इट इज अ यूनेस्को वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट जो है इंडोनेशिया में, इंडोनेशिया योगकर्ता में है। वहां पे दे हैव स्टार्टेड अ ब्रह्मानन टेम्पल। ब्रह्मानन टेम्पल एक वो एक जॉइंट कंजर्वेशन प्रोजेक्ट उन्होंने स्टार्ट किया। यहाँ पे हम देखने की तो इट्स लाइक इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे हमारे इंडिया, लाइक ASI जो आर्कियोलॉजिकल सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया एज अ लीड एजेंसी, दे आर jointly working to further conservation of this temple. Okay, so let us go. This shows like cultural diplomacy. Cultural diplomacy means what? Instead, along with the economic, ये जो cultural diplomacy है, it will be adding like mm, we have like for any trade, instead of like in the globalized world, we share the economic, the like goods and services, the exchange of education and culture also. So cultural diplomacy, it will play as like a soft power. Okay, so जो हमारा सॉफ्ट पावर जो होती है वो डेवलप होता है विद कल्चरल डिप्लोमेसी, एंड दिस इज वेरी प्लेस वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल बिकॉज the like in a country where we believe that वसुधैव कुटुंबकम, the इंडिया की जो कल्चर है, इंडिया का जो एक्सटेंट है, वो मोर और लेस it will be dependent on the diplomacy where the art and culture, education, science and technology is focused। जिसकी वजह से क्या होगा, जो यहाँ पे जो वेस्टेशन क्राइसिस आ रहे हैं, इस तरह के जो इश्यूज है वो कम होंगे। लेट्स गो फॉरवर्ड फॉर दैट कि हमारा जो नेक्स्ट है वो है 44% ऑफ द फीमेल शेयर इन स्टेम प्रोग्राम। व्हाट इज स्टेम प्रोग्राम? साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी, एजुकेशन एंड मेडिकल। इसमें जो प्रोग्राम्स है उसमें हम देख सकते हैं कि अ डिकेड एगो मीन्स अराउंड 2014 में जो हमारा 38.4% जो है विमेन्स फिनेंस इन्वॉल्वमेंट हुआ करता था हायर एजुकेशन में, वो अभी 2024 तक आ चुका है 42% तक। मीन्स इट इज अ वेरी वेरी रिमार्केबल प्रोग्रेस। इट्स वेरी वेरी रिमार्केबल प्रोग्रेस मीन्स द गवर्नमेंट की जो इनिशिएटिव है उसकी एफिशिएंसी को दिखाता है, एंड इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट बिकॉज वी कैन सी, इफ यू कैन सी दैट इन GS पेपर 1 And GS paper 2 especially society के paper में if there is a compulsory question on the women policies, women representations. Okay, so in that this particular part can be included, can be right for the answer writing also we can use this data. This is very important that whenever you are writing in data you must be very cautious that if you are using any data, the data which we get as a newspaper research, इसके हिसाब से जो newspaper research based data होता है we cannot use it directly into our answer writing, because we have to be very much sure that whenever using the data it should be based upon the government research or research of an international organization like WHO, ILO, IMF. Okay, so a data which is well researched from a recognized organization and selecting that and keep citing that into your answer will give you additional marks. You cannot put any data from any side. You need to mention the source in your answer. Okay, let us move forward. So let's go forward when we can see that recently, as I told right now, there has been an infrastructure disaster. Means why we are using infrastructure disaster means it has been happened due to anthropogenic activities, improper planning, improper safeguarding means whenever in India there is a crisis that we are acting after the disaster has been happened. There is not a proper precaution taken before the disaster has been happening. We are not ascertaining the possibility of disaster that would happen. It is like we have seen that claimed 3 lives and the 5 missing amidst heavy rain. The we in India in the effect of El Nino there is a deficit in the there has been deficit in the rainfall, but still अब देख सकते हैं कि यहाँ पे जो वायनाड टैलेंट रोड है वहां पे पूरा अंडर कंस्ट्रक्शन बिल्डिंग के पास सीवियर डेब्रिस स्लिप. सो कैन यू सी दैट द डेब्रिस है वो एक दिन में तो नहीं आता. द डेब्रिस which वो एक दिन में 2 दिन में तो नहीं और means throughout the year the debris will be there. So the authorities and the administrations, यहाँ पे the accountability and the authorities they should like the environmental clearance in case means for the construction it should be taken seriously, because in 2024 also we have seen that there has been an instance of the huge floods where obviously for sure the infrastructural issues and the infrastructure problems were improper planning, the encroachment of the people into the fragile lands. This is the main reason for 2024 landslide in the Wayanad. And still, if after 2 years there is like still there is like a grant of about 50 strict condition and there has been over 50 clearance with a strict condition. This is not a good sign. The CM has also announced the 5 lakhs of ex gratia tunnel what have halted pending from, but this is not the means for example prevention should be ultimate, prevention should be the prior and the cure should be afterwards. The prevention should be taken, the investment should be made on prevention rather than cure. If you are paying 5 lakhs, expecting means it is I'm like this. And one more thing, whenever you're writing an answer, you should not be very political. It should be neutral. It should address the issue and try and should also try to find out the conclusion for that. Okay. Then the government investment of the depending company violates this ecological safeguard to highly sensitive Western Ghats terrain. If you have known that many committees has been developed for the Western Ghats terrain because there's a fragility, there's eco-sensitive area. We have to safeguard the area because we can see that the world famous the Kerala community, it lies under the Western Ghats. The Kerala is a part of Western Ghats, which comes directly in contact with the sea. And the rain enters in India through Kerala. There need to be you need to take too much care for the so let's move forward. Then we have the fundamental rights provision, the right to be forgotten. where the Lakshadweep Yadav Singh Yadav was a Union of India. The Delhi in the May 2026 statutory ruling for the right to be forgotten. So what is right to be forgotten? It's basically like where every person, may he did a great sin, he needs a second chance, right? So, for example, a person who has done some sort of crime in the past, he have he had been through the all his punishment and came along after he came out of his he just had not he been through all his punishment and came out of jail, and just because he some sort of video which has been uploaded, the trauma, the particular the shadow of the crime, which can the word for specific word, the shadow of the crime, which again ruins the lives digitally are frequented. Means even he got acquainted, even he got convicted for his crime, still, still there has been problem that even though he is convicted, he is being like, even though he has been convicted for his crime, still because of the digitally evidence, the digital evidence, there is still prevalence, there is still the trauma, which is like a constant punishment throughout his life. So this poses the right to informative privacy and dignity. Then comes the freedom of the speech and open justice, where the public right to know freedom of the press and scientific judicial records. There is like, for example, the public right. They should know they have freedom for press and at the same time the judicial records. Okay. Then becomes statutory gap, the DP Act, where it offers limited statutory rights to eraser Section 12, but lacks clear rules for judicial archives. So basically, we can see that as per Article 21, it says it supports that yes, the shadow of the crime should be as the same that the right to information, privacy, and dignity, but at the same time, 1918, which asks for the open justice, freedom of speech, ask for like freedom of speech, right information, in which the maintenance of public record also plays an important role. For example, after many years, and 10, 20 years, the victim or a sorry, the accused who has been from to the jail, who completed his jail punishment and again coming for leave to restart his life, he's facing what? The backlash of his own deeds and the help through this digital records. Okay, the next was, is it legitimate public interest to retain this records? Is it legitimate or not? So eraser is not permitted. Okay, then if yes, does a harm to personal privacy outweigh the public interest? So if there's a question that the maintenance of judicial archives is essential in order to for the better and for the better public interest, but at the same time, is does the public interest outweighs the personal privacy? Is also the case. So they are like yes or no. If yes, then what the latest intrusive means doctrine that what it does do not delete the entire judgment, mask or demask the name. So here there is only the judicial where there is like a where there is a issue or where there is a blockade, where there is a dead end, the judicial always they have some sort of a way to come out of it. So what they're saying as the new least interest means doctrine, he, instead of deleting the whole judgment, just the name of the victim or the accused should be erased so that the judgment will be like it will the story will be stayed, but the names will be erased. So the victim won't be defamed for the same again. He won't be punished again after the many years of his conviction. Let's So basically, judgments when accessible where case number, keywords only mean this search index is restricted and balancing both constitutional rights. It will happen that with this, the public privacy, the personal privacy is also maintained and also the public interest. Why is it very important to discuss this topic? Means, but India is a democratic country where the personal privacy, where the fundamental rights are negotiable. They are they are negotiable. They are enforceable in the court of law. So that's what. But on the other hand, when it comes to the public directive principles of state which aims at public interest, which aims at a social um, state's better function, they are not enforceable. Hence, it doesn't mean that the fundamental rights are more important than the uh, directive principles of state. It's technically means that the fundamental rights are enforceable, which means because of the democratic country, where the voice of people is very much is being heard. It, although sometimes it is right, but it is being heard. So that's why the debate between the personal privacy and private and public interest is very, very important. So that's why in that way, the least intrusive meaning, the least intrusive means that doctrine has been came up. So this is very essential because it can be asked in terms of essay writing, also in terms of 515 mark question also. The asymmetry of the welfare funding. So while revenue dispersion favors the union government, while the tax revenue disproportionately favors the union government, the onus of the funding rights-based welfare falls disproportionately on the fiscal constraint states. यहाँ पे देख सकते हैं कि जो हमारे स्टेट ऑब्लिगेशन है, स्टेट के ऊपर एक्सपेंडिचर के ऑब्लिगेशन मीन्स द contribution by the union for many central sponsor scheme or for many expenditure related, it the union contribution to the state is around 1.89% of GDP. When it comes to the state expenditure, it is 6.77% of GDP, which is like it has a inequality, which shows a clear inequality, and the transfer of burden to the states over from the union. So this has been opposed while the issue has been raised for the VBG Ramji scheme. What is V? First of all, let us talk about what is VG Ramji scheme. The VBG Ramji scheme means Viksit Bharat Gramin Rozgar Ajivika Mission. Mission scheme, which is forces states to cover 10% of cost, means 10% of the state cost of the VG Ramji bill has been transferred to the state without prior permission. But at the same time, before when we talk about the MG Narega schemes, it has been MG Narega scheme, it has been the whole of the contribution has been provided by the union only. Okay, so this has been raised the issue of the fiscal federalism, cooperative federalism. Let us talk about the next of the international issue that the West Asian crisis. So we have West Asian crisis, where we're talking about because of the state of Hormuz crisis, the United States launched dozens of strikes on the Iran, imposed oil sanctions, targeted 85%, 85 Iranian strikes in the Gulf. It was deeply divided, frustrated with the failed US security assurance, looking the alternative security architecture. When it comes to the Iran, it was survived with the 40 days of combined US and Israel strike emergency projecting defiance and the controlling states. So you can see that because of the state of Hormuz crisis, there has been a huge instability in the world. US, the biggest superpower, obviously, of the world, has been dragged or it dragged itself into the war in order to maintain its supremacy and all. In order to with the claim to neutralize the development of the nuclear weapon in the Iran. But subsequently, what happened? The Israel-Hamas war, which has started in 2023, has been linked with Iran. With the uh, the Israel claim that Iran has been indirectly started a war with which war? Asymmetric war, which has started asymmetric war with the Israel. So this all issues has subsequently started preceded, which has combinedly forced into the scope of the Strait of Hormuz, where around 40% of the trade goods has to go. But what has happened that recently there has been talks going on whereby there is no US UAE blocks, although it has been complicatedly getting complicated. Has conclusion has been made. However, let us see what happened. First, there has been tension in the Strait of Hormuz, which led to the crude future spike in the job and crude oil, which has increased to 7.4%. Then it has what has impacted in single day the India Sensex Nifty has decreased 2%. When it comes to India has mitigated. It shifted to the Russian oil. It has in the import from the Russian oil has been increased. Means that Russia, which was faced imposition from the US, now it got boost from that oil. It got over from the sanctions. Now we are facing today. We have need to pay the premium for that amount. We are now it's not paid at the discount. It's PM. Then becomes at the diplomatic tightrope. But the India's recent tilt towards the Israel, US, UAE bloc complicates the relation with the research in Iran. The strategic relationship dictates the energy security. Then we have a transnational friction and extraterritorial laws, where the humanity means, for example, here we have the states, we have state boundaries, we have sovereign laws, but there is a concept called humanity, where the human, where the conviction, where the issues, everything is based upon like as a humanistic way. Means, for example, it is based on the universal jurisdiction, like the Hamas trials, like there is a unique, just a universal jurisdiction. So we have recently saw during the Gaza war crimes, Elton Gilboa, a Israeli soldier who was accused by the Hind Razan Foundation that he was accused of a Gaza war crimes. So currently he has been vacation. He came to the vacation for the Himachal Pradesh with respect to like human rights or universal jurisdiction as a grave breach of a Geneva Convention, he should be arrested. So Indian authorities, so HRF, which is Hind Raza Foundation, who accused the Gaza wars crime on the Eltia Gilbert, Israeli soldier, they are pushing Indian authorities to arrest him under the Geneva Convention, which causes which always works for the humanitarian cause. Then we have next it comes like we have transnational friction. So how the India is going to deal the issue, whether it's going to address it, whether it's going to arrest that person, whether it's going to leave that, it will depend upon again. It will just have the impact on the further uh, diplomacy of the India. Then we have Operation Hardball with the Canada US, with the charges that Lawrence Krishna Grower of ordering for the June 2023 assassination of Hardeep Singh Nizar. So it has been found that they highlight the cross-border organized crime strain on India-Canada relation. There has been a huge discussion with the India-Canada diplomatic relations. US has charged the Lawrence Bishop and the Goldgar for the ordering the June 2023 assassination of Hardeep Singh Nizar, which has led to very much strain in India-Canada relations. They are responsible for the various organized crime and also killing of uh, the famous singer like Sidhu Moosewala. So this has been a international issue which has impacted the community, the Indian community over the Canada. Then we have next. Then we have for the science and technology, the quantum frontier. It talks about the how the classical means with India. This talks about the target 2031, the Make India initiating India is India has set to lead the world in the quantum technology as well. It has sanctioned 60,000 crores. Okay, so how is quantum computing is different from the classical computing? If you have a small amount of ideas, there's a binomial computation where the bits zero and one. Like it can be zero or one. This is how the code for the classical computing happen. But when it comes to qubit computing, the zero and one are superposition work simultaneously. Okay, so here in classical computing, there like only one program, it works independently. There's an independent relationship between the two, if for any function. So, for example, when it comes to the quantum computing, the entangled state linked regardless of distance, the states linked regardless of a state is linked regardless of distance, regardless of how much distance it states the link, it can entangle the information. When it comes to capacity, it's sequential one by one, one by one. There is a particular process by through which according we have sequential processing where through a particular process it follows. And through that for process only, the classical computing has to be happen. When it comes to the quantum computing, it's massive, where the large amount of data can be computed parallelly, and this is very essential. Like, for example, in classical computing, if any action has been happened, it may take an age of universe to complete that particular calculation. But the same thing can be calculated in seconds by the quantum computing. So there can be a question that is AI and quantum computing are same? No, the AI is different and quantum computing is different. The classical computing, it has developed into the AI. So AI is a part of a hardware in classical computing. The quantum computing, it is something different where like the large amount of data is calculated, is based upon mathematical calculations. Okay, so in this way, if you see, like for example, the research can be made on logistic, the Volkswagen, they use the quantum computing in order to the Volkswagen, they use quantum computing in order to assess the traffic data, logistic, and you can see the use of quantum computing in medicinal use for calculating the different types of medicines, chemical compositions, possibilities, which is not possible further, it is not humanly possible. Okay, so the recent research has been developed where we can see there has been a decoherence diagrams. Means what the superposition we can say. There is a qubit. A qubit is there. The qubits, they're incredibly sensitive. They cannot withstand the normal environment. Yeah. So in temperature of heat, in temperature of flight, in temperature, in contact with the noise, they become decoherence. Means the superposition of the qubit, which acts for the, which is responsible for the quantum computing, they losses that quantum state in effect of the environmental interference. So what is solution? So they need to be isolated into the extreme sub-zero cooling near the minus 23, 273 degrees Celsius. So in order to make that stability of a quantum superposition in them. So basically, when you talk about the physical versus a logical qubit, because of an individual qubit are error-prone, scientists must group them into the single, stable, and logical qubits to suppress error rates. So, for example, like Google Willow chips, they use such kind of thing. And one more thing that all the quantum computing, this they don't possess the 100% true data. It is like the scientists believe that it can be true, but the maximum possibility, the scale of the efficiency which quantum computing can bring is unimaginable. Next, we talk about the urban infrastructure vulnerabilities. It is very, very important. Then we're going to end our today's discussion. Okay, it came out. So the last topic is about the urban infrastructure vulnerabilities. We are talking that because of the anthropological with careless in both incidents, there has like where there one incident where a PCMC building, uh, under construction building was crashed into the waste to energy plant waste, massive amount of accumulated waste, means the amount of waste which was crashed into the under construction building, which led to massive vulnerabilities, disaster. And there is another case where in the Rohini building, building named Rohini Delhi was collapsed. A four-story building was collapsed into the debris. So this is very, very important that both incidents were the lethal combination of extreme weather event like heavy rains, poor regulatory oversight, public, private, urban construction led to projects. So if you see, this is not the first time. This is not the first time we have seen various incidents where such incidents has been happen, but still we tend, still we tend to neglect such issues, which is not at all important because we can see that it is like the tragedies. If you can say that there is a corporate profit is overweighed more than public safety. The tragedies in Navayana ignore the ecological clearance. The Pune, the shoddy construction pointed to the systematic moral hazard. The contractor margins are overpowering, is over prioritizing over the human life. And further, we have this topic called economics of a pre-poll welfare. Recently, if you see the state of Telangana, instead of Jharkhand, instead of Maharashtra, there has been various schemes which are talking about giving some sort of freebies to the freebie income to the women's. Women empowerment is good. It's very, very good. But how it should be? It should be like the in representation, it is a representation of the women into the parliament or the Gram Sabhas. These are the positive initiatives, but at the same time, the freebies, which aim at social upliftment and increasing female mobility, which should be like the reality of whether it is viable. The country should it can recover the debt trap. Is it the countries in the states their debt is too much that they are not able to pay the salaries of their workers. In such situation, is it that necessary that you are allowing that enacting with prior without any prior viability studies? The claims of the election promises are directly having the fiduciary duty, that impacting the fiduciary duties. Okay, so what we have the highlights, see, it really highlights the severe friction between the intended social empowerment and the macroeconomic stability of a state. So where the small election promises are impacting and overpowering the fiduciary and the macroeconomic states. When it comes to the digital dignity versus open society, is it ethical to permanently attach a digital shadow of a crimes? That we have talked about the right to be forgotten. Then here we came to end of our story that yes, the particular newses we have in the newspaper. In GS1, we had climate change and extreme monsoons. GS2, we have waste issue and conflict. GS3, we have in the energy security and inflation. In GS4, and at the same time, GS3, we have infrastructure collapse of Vanet, Pune, and ethical deficit, because it talks about the disaster management, how the anthropological disaster has been done, and the ethical deficit. When it comes to the state welfare funding, we in Manoj Gaskin and VBG Ram, this scheme, it talks about the uh, policy, political policy, and the economy. There is the interaction means when you are talking about, we are studying about the when we are studying about the APSC, what you cannot study each and every subject independently. You need to understand how to interact to one subject with others. For example, the geopolitical dictates a crude price. So geopolitics, which is dictating the crude price, which is having the impact on the geopolitics and as well as economy as well. So we can interrelate this topic into the two subjects. And this in this way we can study, like we can focus on the topics which are interrelating. For example, constant state revenue, where the GS2 and GS3, it can relate the both, has a threat multiplier. Okay, so in this way, we should not isolate each and every event. We should master the syllabus by mastering the interconnection. If you're able to interconnect the topics, you can develop more points, you can write more content, you can use your brain for the better efficiently. Means the content accumulation is one thing, and the using the content at the correct time, at the correct moment, in correct manner. Changing means taking one content and using it in different subjects like GS1, GS2, GS3. So this is all how you're answer writing. So when you're writing, I think this is all we have for the today. So this has been your the Hindu analysis of the day. Tomorrow I'm gonna take up that how you will be clearing your UPSC for the next 10 months. If you still who are one who, if you are the one who have not still started or still stuck back, then you like you can start like in the next video we will doing that how what should be your 10 months planner for the UPSC studies. If you are enthusiast or you want to like you're enthusiast to give the UPSC prelims this next year, you can also join and stay tuned. Thank you for the day.